Hi class, in this video I'm going to be talking about how to represent percents pictorially. So we're going to represent them using a grid here. So in this grid there is one big square, and inside that big square there are 100 little squares, and each little square represents 1%. So in this case, if I want to represent 50%, I simply just have to shade in 50 squares because there's 100 squares here. So let's just count. We know this is a 10 by 10, so we simply shade in this amount here. This would simply be 10. I just shaded in 10 here. So if I want to shade in more, I go to the next row and I shade it in. This would now be 10 plus 10, so that's 20%. And then if I shade in the next row, that is going to be 30%. I'm going to keep shading in. That's 30%. I shade in the next row. That's 30% plus 10%. That's going to be 40% of it shaded in. And then I simply shade in the fifth row here. Now that all 5 rows are shaded in, I have simply shaded in 50 squares out of 100 squares. Hence, I shaded in 50%. Now, to shade in 120%, recall that one big square has 100 little squares in it, and the little square represents 1%. So if I want to shade in 120%, well, first things first. If I simply shade in every square inside of this big square, or if I shade in every little square inside of this big square, that means I shaded in 100%, because one big square represents 100% because it has 100 little squares in it, with the little squares representing 1% for each one. So I shaded in the whole thing. That's going to be now 100%. Now for the 20%, I simply just have to shade in 20 little squares in my next big square. So let's do that. Okay, that's 10 squares shaded in. So now I shade in another 10 to make 20. All right, and now since I shaded in 100% and I shaded in 20%, that means 100% plus 20% is actually 120%. Hence, that means I shaded in 120% in total.